Hello, Audio Marks, coming to you from the Sachem Public Library. Welcome to the Marks for Life podcast with your hosts, Jimmy and CJ, two casuals turned Marks wrestling fans, to give you a direct line to all things in the squared circle. Enter the ring at your own risk. We pull no punches, we hit hard, and we will slam you with all the info you need to know. So, ladies and gentlemen, are you ready? I said!
And we're back. Well, at least I'm back. Hello, guys. Welcome back to Marks for Life Podcast. I am your host, Jimmy. I am not joined by CJ this week. It is Thanksgiving week, so happy Thanksgiving to everyone that's listening here in America, to those outside of America. It's a special holiday that we just decided to take a day and just give thanks for all the blessings we have in our lives. This week is going to be another mini-cast because, I'm alone doing this, and yeah, that's going to be fun. Well, we got a very interesting mini-cast this week. We're going to talk exclusively about Survivor Series and the aftermath of what that happened, and also possibly talk about NXT WarGames. WarGames was, yeah, that happened also. I would say between the two, WarGames was just slightly better because of the end payoff compared to Survivor Series, but we're gonna jump into that in a little second. Next week we'll be back to normal, hopefully, and we'll also be doing some interesting topics. I don't know quite yet. Gotta get through this whole holiday weekend, and hopefully everything will be fun. Sorry, just a little coffee for myself because I'm recording this Friday morning. Yeah, it's just been that crazy. Thanksgiving was a crazy time, but it was good. It was fun. Ate, got fat, be merry, and all that. Alrighty then, let's get right into WarGames. WarGames, for the weekend was incredible. This past Saturday, not the Saturday that this podcast drops, but the one right before that was pretty good. It started off with a pretty good match between Cassius Ohno and Lars Sullivan. I believe Lars won. That's a match that I didn't really pay attention to, but it caught my attention every now and again because it's Lars Sullivan. He's a very large man, and just rocking Cassius Ohno. What did catch my attention, though, was probably the best match of WarGames, just stylistically and just what happened in ring, was between Aleister Black and Velveteen Dream. By God, just an incredible pairing of those two. Just incredible. I can foresee Velveteen Dream being a fantastic heel going forward, especially if he keeps doing that thing he did in it at WarGames, where he has the printing of the opponent and his face on tights. Because that right there, like, as soon as I saw that, I was like, yeah, he's probably going to be the best heel going forward in WWE. He's probably going to be a future great heel. And then you have Aleister Black, who arguably is going to be NXT champion, I'm going to say, by Mania. That's my opinion. I don't know if that's a popular opinion or not. I would assume so, because Aleister Black is fantastic. But I would say he's going to be NXT champion by Mania. That's my prediction for it. And the match was great. Lots of kicking, lots of screaming, and a lot of saying names and recognizing respect. So congratulations to you guys. You guys were awesome. Then you have the NXT Fatal 4-Way match, which I thought was good. It wasn't the best match of the night. Again, it was the Aleister Black Velveteen Dream match. But this match was pretty good. I think they went with a safe choice to pick as a new champion, because it would have been interesting to see Nikki Cross be champion, or Peyton Royce, or Kairi Sane. But they went with Ember Moon, and I like Ember Moon. I think she has a pretty good moveset. I know CJ has criticized her in the past, but I think that she'll be a good champion, and it seems like she's going to be like a heel. I'm not entirely sure. The story's a little shaky on that. I don't know. But we'll see what happens in the coming weeks for NXT, and hopefully we'll get a better picture of what that's going to look like for the TakeOver pre-Royal Rumble. My apologies. Then you have the NXT Championship match between Drew McIntyre and Andrade Cien Almas. And just unfortunate times for Drew, man. I mean, not only did he lose the championship in a pretty good match, I would say. I think it was one of the best match Andrade Cien Almas has ever had. But also, just poor timing for Drew, though. I mean, he had an injury off of a botched move, I believe, towards the end of the match that, and he's gonna be out for a couple weeks. It's just, poor Drew, man. He had so much potential. I thought he was gonna show up right on either Raw or SmackDown this week, and it doesn't look like it's gonna happen. Probably not for a while. Hopefully it's not too serious, and hopefully we'll see him at the Rumble, but who knows? And then we get to the main event, which was WarGames, and I have a love-hate relationship with this particular WarGames match. Though I think the carnage and, the craziness that was inside the match itself was fantastic, and I think the spots that we're doing were great. Killian Dane killed it, as always. You had some fantastic shots of Adam Cole being on, top of the ring post and on top of the cage and doing, setting up for these spots and everything, and it was incredible. A couple of issues I have. First off, next time just do a full WarGames match and have the top of the cage, because I feel like it would have been a lot cooler. Second, I don't understand why WWE has this asphyxiation with shark cages, but it seems like a weird way to do it. I get because there was 3 teams, and one had to be picked over here, and this one had to be picked over there, and then I understand that, but next time just do a classic WarGames match, 5v5, one end of the cage on the other side, and it would have been better. It would have been better. I don't want to say that WarGames itself was a terrible match. It wasn't. It was a great match. It was a fun match, and it left me happy going into Survivor Series, which is something I can't really say about Survivor Series. But, I mean, WarGames overall I think was really good, and I think the way that they presented WarGames was still good. It was just, it could have been done better. And I know I'm just Mark, just giving out my opinions, but this is part of the podcast, and that's the reason why you guys listen. But I don't know. Definitely needs work. I think they need to go back to the classic WarGames. I don't know the full story of why they can't, but I would still like to see that one day, hopefully in WWE. Going into Survivor Series, it started off fantastic. You had the Shield versus the New Day, probably one of the best matches of the night. And, of course, the Shield killed it. And the New Day killed it, and ultimately the Shield won, which I needed to happen. I don't know why they would bring back the Shield just so they could jump out to the New Day. As much as I love the New Day, doesn't make sense that they would do that. Then you move on to, I believe... Sorry, guys. A little sick. This past Thanksgiving weekend. Apologize for that. Then you move on to, I believe, The Miz and Baron Corbin. And that was good, and I think they made Baron Corbin strong. I don't know. I felt that the match itself and how they comprised it and how they were building up this kind of rivalry and Baron Corbin making fun of The Miz's kid and stuff like that, or something like that. Nothing specific of Baron Corbin making fun of children, but something like that. And it would have been nice to see, the father of the child, get, the upper hand on that. But, it was still pretty good. And, good for Baron Corbin. He honestly really needed that considering where he was on SmackDown. But, I'm excited to see where this goes moving forward. Then you have the tag team match in probably one of the best matches in quite a long time between the Bar and the Usos. You had the Usos go over, which was fantastic. Just very good, very good. Then you had the women's match. Again, Fantastic match. And Charlotte winning. Also, the pretty good decision on that, especially considering that she won the title on the Tuesday beforehand. And that whole card changed up because she was originally supposed to be on the Survivor Series team, but then they moved her over, and then we got a new women's match, and I'll talk about that a little bit. I know that the women's match happened a little bit before, but I'm going to bring the classic Survivor Series match and talk about that at the end of Survivor Series talk. Then you had AJ versus Brock, and it started off pretty much exactly what we all kind of thought. We all thought Brock was going to squash AJ, but AJ Styles being AJ Styles and just being, in my opinion, the modern-day Bret Hart, killed it. He brought it up to Brock Lesnar, got some impressive offense in, made Brock work for it, and it was great. Still a little shocked that, it took several of AJ Styles' finishers to take down Brock and only took one of Brock's to do it. I mean, I understand that we still have to maintain Brock Lesnar as his top guy, but I mean, just a little bit more competitive. We have a guy who basically rebuilt SmackDown and is the WWE champion. The WWE champion, the marquee championship, not the Universal one, the WWE one. I don't know. Maybe it's just because he's a bigger guy. I don't know what's going on through Vince's head. Then you have the Women's Survivor Series match. And basically what most people believe is that you don't ever bet against Asuka. Asuka is the best, and no one will ever beat her. And going through the match itself, it was pretty good. There was a botch by Alicia Fox. So, of course. But then they kind of regained that, how do I explain this? So we have, I forget who got out first. I think it was Becky Lynch. And then it quickly moved into Bayley and then Alicia, and it wasn't supposed to be Alicia right away. And then Naomi lost. And then you had the two big Pan-Pacific Islanders. You had Nia Jax and Tamina go out kind of almost simultaneously, and it was still really good. Then you had, I forget who else is on the team. But then you had the other two kind of go out, and the mystery person that was supposed to be Paige turned out to be Natalya, kind of like, not a shocker. I mean, it's obvious, but it would have been nice to see Paige. But we understand why it wasn't Paige. It happens later on. This past Monday and also Tuesday, which some interesting things happened, and I'll get into that in a little bit. But then we had Asuka just wreck kind of everyone. You don't ever bet against Asuka. Asuka won it for the women. Good job, Asuka. Proud of you. Then we get into the men's, and this is where it kind of gets a little mucky, and the whole reason why Survivor Series at the end of the day kind of was, It was still really good. It was just, So you had pretty much the most star-studded card in probably all Survivor Series in the past several years. Braun Strowman, Triple H, Kurt Angle, I'm blanking. Samoa Joe and Finn Balor on the Raw side. Then you had Shane McMahon, John Cena, Randy Orton, Bobby Roode, and Shinsuke Nakamura for SmackDown. And it was still pretty good. And I would say, some really good moments between a lot of the Triple H guys, a lot of Triple H and a lot of the NXT guys with, the too sweeting Finn Balor at the beginning of the match. Then you have, him facing off against Shinsuke and Bobby Roode. Then you have, later on in the match, you have John Cena with Kurt Angle and Randy Orton with Kurt Angle, and it was just interesting. But, halfway through the first part of that match was really good, up until, you had John Cena versus Kurt Angle, and then Kurt Angle beats John Cena kind of easily, and then it just proceeds to, SmackDown losing. And then you had, this weird moment of, Sammy and Kevin kind of interfering for Shane, and kind of setting up a storyline that happens on SmackDown. Then you have Triple H turning on Kurt Then you have to help Shane. Then you have Triple H turning on Shane to help his own team, and it's only Braun Strowman and Triple H left, and we go home from Survivor Series thinking, what the hell just happened? And, you know, it's just, you don't do that. You're like, we understand he's the game, he buries people, but like, there was a time for that, and it's just, right now, it's just, that time's passed. There's no need to have that anymore. But, you know, at least they somewhat let us go a little happy because you have Braun Strowman just absolutely destroy and made Triple H look like he crapped his pants, which was fantastic beatdown by Senor Braun Strowman. Thank you so much, Braun. You are bae. You are bae. And just a funny little thing that has been circulating on the internet has been when Triple H was leaving the arena with Stephanie, he bumps into one of the Titantron panels. And it was just really funny, and I'm really happy that we got that moment. Fast forwarding into Raw, a couple of interesting things happened. We have a new IC champion in Roman Reigns because he beat The Miz. So Roman Reigns is now a Grand Slam champion after, you know, not really earning it, but it's still really good. I'm not going to deny, you know, that kind of thing to Roman. To be honest, that should have happened a couple of weeks ago, but, you know, things changed relatively quickly, and we didn't know what Survivor Series was going to look like, and we didn't know what was going to happen with, you know, all these viral infections that have been going on, you know, for the past month or so. Then you had the return of Paige, and it was just fantastic. But she didn't come alone. She came along with two other NXT stars. I believe it was Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville. I believe they were tough enough people, and then they were transferred into NXT, and I think they're kind of establishing like this NXT Invasion, but they're doing it just for the women, and I kind of find it interesting because the same thing, copy and paste, happened on SmackDown, but it happened with Ruby Riott, Sarah Logan, and Liv Morgan, and it just seemed kind of interesting. To be honest, I think the only weird person out of all 6 of those women is probably Liv, just because she doesn't seem like the person that would just do that. It would have been sweet if, like, Tessa Blanchard, I know I go a lot long to put Tessa Blanchard over, but, I mean, just for what happened on SmackDown with, you know, those women interfering with the title match on SmackDown, it would have been sweet to see, like, an interaction between a Blanchard and a Flair, but, you know, I'm not the booker, so I don't make those decisions. But yeah, those are kind of the main things that happened this particular week in wrestling. Next week we will be back to a normal platform. I hope you guys had a fantastic Thanksgiving, and hope you guys have a fantastic week ahead, and we'll see you guys next week.
And that's the bottom line, 'cause Stone Cold said so.
Thank you, everyone, for staying tuned to our podcast. Special shout out to the Sachem Public Library for the continued use of their equipment and space. Continue supporting us by rating and subscribing through Patreon, Audio Boom, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, Radio Public, Spotify, Google Play Music, and Apple Podcasts at Marks for Life Podcast. And now check out our YouTube channel, Marks for Life, for our podcast playlist and new content coming soon. Please follow us on our social media on Twitter at Marks for Life Pod, Instagram at Marks for Life Podcast, our Tumblr page, Marks for Life Podcast, and our Facebook page, Marks for Life Podcast. And email us at marksforlifepodcast@gmail.com for any questions or comments. Until next time, Audio Marks.